Welcome back. We move to the Eastern Conference now. We'll start with the Montreal Canadiens now. This was a team that made it all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals last year. Unfortunately, lost Carey Price in that Eastern Conference Final now. Is this a team that could get back there, potentially get to the Stanley Cup Final, or was last year more of a fluke?
Well, I don't know if fluke's the word you want to. Everything has to come together in a playoff run. And, you know, the bad thing for Montreal, of course, they lost Price in the playoffs. Could have they gone deeper with Price in the lineup? Oh, of course they would have. I think they'll make the playoffs, but I don't think their playoff run will go as deep as it was last year because they lost a little bit of leadership. You know, they let some leaders walk away from that team, and they probably shouldn't have.
With Price, they're the same. Like the best Canadian team. That's the. You know, we're talking about all the Canadian teams. Montreal's clearly the best Canadian team. I think they do have the team that can come back to the playoffs. They're going to be pushing for that Stanley Cup. They could. That's the thing. The Eastern Conference is not the strongest conference. So coming out of Montreal, you know, get Price, you know, Subban, that whole thing's all solved up. Their forwards are really exciting to watch. So I think Montreal is the next team in Canada. We're cheering for Canadians. We got to cheer for the Canadians, unfortunately.
Now, this team doesn't have a captain right now. They got 4 alternate captains. Now, I don't know if they're going to name one this year, but down the road maybe. Who do you think is going to be that guy to step up, take over the leadership role, and wear the C in Montreal?
I think it's got to be PK. He kind of breathes what the NHL wants and what the Canadians should take, and it's a player that's, you know, he's so confident in the way he talks, he's so confident in the way he plays. I think this is a guy you can circle the team around and say, that's the leader of our team, that's the face of our franchise. I think it's got to be PK.
Yeah, I say PK if he matures a little bit more. And I think there were some questions regarding his maturity among his teammates, among other players in the NHL, and I think you've seen that, and you saw that in the playoffs last year, and I think he's a guy that, you know, it'll be interesting to see him wearing the letter here going forward this season, and if he shows that leadership both on and off the ice, then yeah, I think he will be the ideal captain for him.
Okay, now the consensus here is that Montreal's going to make the playoffs. We all agree on that. Now, is this a team that could potentially compete with the likes of the Boston Bruins and maybe walk out with the division title?
Maybe could. I think Boston has such a stronghold on that. I think they could. Everybody needs to fall into place. They need to play well against not just the Bostons, but like every other team. So they could, but I think just below Boston.
You can't take too many nights off, you know, if you want to win a division. So I think Montreal need a lot again. A lot of things have to fall into place. You have to stay healthy, and yeah, you know, maybe pick up a player or two along the way that's going to solidify maybe a little more scoring up front.
Okay, now moving on to the Ottawa Senators now. Of course, losing J.C. Spezza in the offseason, but locking up Bobby Ryan, which is good news for Sens fans. Now, what kind of team are we going to be looking at the Senators heading into this year?
They're going to struggle. I'm sorry, Clark, but, you know, I love Clark MacArthur to death, but at the same time, you know, great leader on that team, but, geez, they got a lot of missing pieces. And I really question their 2 goaltenders, one thing. I don't think they're both, you know, secure number 1 goalies, and that's the reason why they're going to go back and forth. And their defense is suspect at times too. So if you have suspect goaltending and defense, that's not a good start to a season. And so I think they're going to be in tough. I can't see them making the playoffs.
You know, it's supposed to be a year that we find out if Robin Lehner can be that number 1. That's why they brought back Craig Anderson. If they're giving up as many shots as they do every game, it's not going to be what they want. It doesn't matter who you put in net. Find any team who's giving up 40 shots a game, you're not going to win hockey games. The only thing I like about Ottawa is they have a nice small group of players that are coming up, and they have a young team. They always manage to play above their means, which is great for Ottawa fans and maybe not great for the franchise in terms of draft picks, but at least showing some light in the future more than, say, some West Coast teams.
Okay, now the Senators did name a captain. Carlson is going to be the guy to steer the ship. You guys like Carlson as the captain in Ottawa?
Yeah, you know what? One of the greatest. I think he's one of the top 5 defensemen in the entire NHL, if not, you know, possibly the best all-around defenseman in the NHL. But being a great player, being a leader, that's 2 different things. And I can't really, you know, we don't really know enough about Ottawa in this market to say that he's a great leader. But you know, the potential is there, I guess.
I guess, yeah, we're going off. We don't know what he's like in the locker room. We don't know what he like is a player. All we know is what he does on the ice, and he is, like I said, one of the best defensemen. So when you're looking at a face of the franchise, like I've said, and for Montreal, it's Erik Karlsson. Got to make him the captain. All
right, and finally, last but not least, Bucky, I know you've been waiting for this one, the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now, after last year's blow-up near the end of the year, missing out on the playoffs, can the Maple Leafs kind of regain what they had and potentially get back to the postseason?
We're going to analyze this one. Apparently, that's what the Leafs are going to do this year. Analyze everything, every moment of every
That's why
game.
they brought that guy in.
The guy's younger than me, so that makes me depressed. But I think first thing with them, they have to solve their goalie situation. You got to get rid of one. I think Bernier's the guy who's going to be there. Toronto's not the place you want a goalie controversy, because now we're just going to have nonstop. Is it Reimer? Is it Bernier? Pick a goalie, stick with them, get a legit. I'm like, go ask for Peter Budaj. What is he doing now? Like, get him in there, and you could probably. I'm like, James over to Winnipeg. Everyone's happy, but you have to start from the crease out for the Leafs.
Yeah. But I think their goaltending is better than a lot of other teams in the Eastern Conference, and I think their defense is too. And this pains me to say this, and it really hurts me to say this.
Here it comes.
I think the Leafs will make the playoffs.
Wow, you heard it right here, Bucky.
And that hurts.
Like,
and I know everybody at TSN, the Toronto Sports Network, will be jumping up and down because the Maple Leafs and CBC will be beside themselves because the Maple Leafs will be in the playoffs, because it's very tilted towards Toronto when it comes to media in this country. But I really think the Leafs, they have some good scoring. Like, they have scoring from two lines there. Their third line is going to be a hard checking line, and their fourth will kind of get thrown out there whenever they need them. But I really think the Leafs have it, because there's going to be a decline of some of the other teams in the Eastern Conference. I suspect Philly to decline. I suspect Detroit to decline. So some teams that were in the playoffs last year, I can't see them making it this year. So that gives the Leafs an opportunity.
You said the goaltending is going to be there, but what about guys like Phil Kessel and James Van Riemsdyk? Like, are they going to be the X factor? Are they going to have to step up their game, improve, and potentially, be the X factor for these guys this year?
Yeah, Kessel is out of shape. Looks like a guy that just kind of rolled out of McDonald's and went to the rink. But at the same time, he's a great hockey player.
And that's the point. He is a great hockey player. He doesn't get the respect for being a great hockey player. Like I said, only, 3 players have more goals than him? We're locking Stamkos, Ovechkin, and Barrie. Kessel never gets the respect that he deserves. So, what more can he do? He's scoring 80, 90 points a season. Someone else has got to step up on this team. You can't just rely on those two to score all the time. Now we're talking about depth, which they probably don't have. So,
all right, we're going to cut you guys off there. We got to go into an intermission. When we come back, we got a little over-under.